What is up, everybody? This is the L Recap, episode 38. We're a show that focuses on covering the matches, news, and results of the Overwatch League. Today, we are joined by a very special guest, caster for the Overwatch League, Hexagrams. What's up, man?
Hey, it's interesting being called special, but I'll take it.
You are very special to us. We get to hear your voice and see your face up in the screen every week, enjoying the games.
And for
So
that, I'm
it's a
sorry.
special moment. I'll take the apology. Thank you so much. Also joining us today, we have Bob. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing amazing. Excellent, out of this world. Oh, it's a whole new meta. I'm going to start. You just should go on before I start singing.
And of course, last but not least, Melarina. How you doing?
Hello. I'm even better than Bob because my Texas team killed it this week, not his.
They did. They're starting out really, really good, but we'll get into that in a second. Before we do, I just want to take a little moment over here to thank our new Patreons. As everyone knows, we've started our new Patreon campaign to help us attend the matches a little more often, get the best quality content possible, get all those behind the scene interviews. And so far, we've gotten some support from some people, and we really appreciate it. We want to especially thank Nicole Carroll joining as a recap fan, and also Cody Alfar and Drunken Monk as our newest recap associates. Thank you so much, guys. You guys rock. Anything you guys want to say here?
Thanks, guys. It's really awesome.
Yeah.
Tell all your friends.
Thank you so much.
We really appreciate it. The support means a lot to us. If you'd like to join them in supporting us, you can go to patreon.com/owlrecap and do your pledge today. Thank you so much for that, guys. All right, guys, let's get into the meat of the stuff. Hex, I want to ask you a few questions before we go into all the recap for everything.
Yeah,
It's a really good transition.
until we get to the meat of the stuff. I got
Let's get into the meat of the stuff. That's what I say over here.
it.
How did you get started in Overwatch? Because everyone knows you as a caster, everyone knows you from Overwatch League, but when did everything start for you?
Oh man, I feel like I told the story a trillion times, so I'll try to keep it brief. But let's see. I started writing for Heroes of the Storm for Gosu Gamers like 3 years ago, something like that, just to do something. I was really bored in my life and needed like a new hobby, so I was like, all right, I'll get it. I've went to school for writing, so it's always been something I really liked. And then I did it mostly just to get a beta key for Overwatch. I knew I was going to love this game. It's very similar to TF2, which is like my favorite game of all time. So I even straight up told my main editor, like section lead, I'm like, look, I'm just doing this for Overwatch. I'll write you guys weekly articles on Heroes of the Storm, but it's not my game. It's a fine game. It's just not for me. And so eventually when beta keys came out, being first in something is always a huge advantage. So like getting the first beta key. And then I told them, I'm like, whatever content you guys want to do for Overwatch, whether that's writing, whatever it is, I want to do that. Move me off of Heroes of the Storm, put me in Overwatch. And then they decided that they were going to start running tournaments. And I think our first tournament, we gave away $50. So that was November, I want to say 2015, 2016. I don't even, I think it's November 2015. I don't know. Whenever the game went into very closed beta, then we started doing tournaments like right away, all weekend, every weekend. That's where ZP and I met. And so then I just did Overwatch tournaments for Gosu Gamers all weekend, every weekend, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, for like about a year. I think we got several weeks of Gosu Gamers EU, Gosu Gamers NA, and then started picking up like little side tournaments. It was just like awesome for me because I was like, I had to work a part-time job just to pay my rent, but that's not what I wanted to be doing. So I'd get like a side tournament. They're like, here's $200. I'm like, oh my God, this is a ridiculous amount of money for me at the time. So I don't know, man, like how I got into Overwatch is I just started doing it. I just put myself in position to get in early with a beta key and then just did as much as humanly possible. I always love telling the story to people. Like, you don't know if you have passion for something until you set an alarm at 3 a.m. on a Saturday so you can get up and cast a Russian tournament that 20 people are going to watch. So that just did it. And
That's awesome right here. I love that story.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool because you were part of my first Overwatch esports what's what I'm looking for? My Overwatch esports introduction. Like you were the first person that I saw when I turned on Overwatch esports on Gosu Gamers. I was like,
Yeah,
who are
it's
these
crazy,
guys?
man.
These guys are doing so much work. And then
No,
yeah,
it's
here
just
you are now.
people always ask me like, so how do you do it? And the answer is always so simple. It's like you just do it. You just keep doing it, and you hope to get lucky some way. And like I didn't get my first real gig, first live Overwatch gig for at least a year. It was DreamHack. And I'd been passed over for some big events that people were doing, and you get down a little bit. Like I've been doing all this work, and then I'm not getting the events I want to get. And I finally got that event. The big turning point was March of last year when Carbon Series got a hold of me, and they're like, "We're going to do this 6-week tournament." And we're going to pay you this. We're going to do this is the plan. So I go to work, and I'm like, obviously, you guys can't give me 6 weeks off. I'd done a couple of events, and they were cool about giving me a week off here or there, and that was fine. I'm like, they're like, obviously we can't give you 6 weeks off. And I'm like, I know, I have to quit. Sorry. And so I went to Denver for 6 weeks and did like live casting 3 nights a week with ZP. So we just got like really into it, got into the grind, and got to know all the teams even better than we did. So Carbon was the big thing. And then after that, I think I did OWPS, might have been my second event after that. And that was with Jason and Jamerson. And we're simulcasting the Chinese, the Overwatch Premier Series from China. So we'd get to the studio at 1 a.m. and we'd work till 8 a.m. I believe that's 4 nights a week for 6 weeks. So that was definitely nice to just stay in it, because that's when they were doing Contender Season 2. So I did Contender Season 0 before that. And then Contender Season 1 came out, and they wanted to try out some new talent, but they're like, hey, we know that you still have to feed yourself, so we have this tournament to do. Would you be interested in doing that? I'm like, I just want to work. Just let me work. So I did that, and then now it's Overwatch League. And this one came pretty late too. I think they actually finally sent me my contract offer in like late December, and then that got sorted out. Then like they're like, hey, in 2 days we're doing preseason, and we need someone to come in. Can you come in? I was like, I guess. And then I moved to LA like the week of Christmas, and then been doing Overwatch League since. But you start out, you pretty much have to just be comfortable not getting paid for a year. And a lot of people can't do that. You got to find like a part-time job that'll pay you enough to pay your rent. You have to know that you're not going to make a ton of money, and then you have to know that you're taking a huge chance when you make decisions like that. Like you quit your job to go do it, but so it's do or die moments. And I don't know. A lot of people came from other games. Overwatch is really the only game that I've ever done, because I don't know, I feel like you have to really love the game, otherwise it comes across as disingenuous. Right. And I knew that I was going to love this game. So just a lot of hard work, a lot of hours, and a lot of weekends, and not wasted, because I mean I love casting. So it was like, but it gets all day Saturday, all day Sunday for like a year, and just not making money. Then eventually, hopefully, it breaks open for you. And that's
well, it's paid off greatly for you, right? Like all those years that you spent grinding out. Now you're able to be in the Overwatch League. You're a recognizable name and face, and I bet it's opened a lot of doors for you at this point. So I mean, props for that. It's awesome hearing that story, because it tells you a lot about yourself, right? Like how passionate you're about the game, for you to have been grinding out for that long. Because a lot of people would have given up way long ago.
Yeah, I mean,
pursued that.
There was a time that I was doing all the work for a year. Like then ZP was starting to get like enormous events, right? He got to do the first BlizzCon. I didn't. Right. Like I was just getting passed over for stuff, and like I gave myself like a day to be upset about it. Like, well, this sucks. You can sit here and be upset, and then the next day I'm like, okay, so what are you casting next? What's next? What's next? So, I mean, you gotta deal with disappointment all along the way, and you just gotta keep doing it. I mean, if you really want to do it, just keep doing it. No one's gonna stop you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is crazy. I look back at it like it's in March of last year is when I had to like really make the decision of like, okay, so Carbon's gonna pay me this much money. I can live for this many months on it. I think quitting your job, no matter what it is always difficult, because it's like I don't know where the next money is gonna come from.
Yeah, it's uncertainty.
Yeah, but that was like less than a year ago, and now I'm living in Los Angeles and casting the Overwatch League. So it's been a whirlwind. I was in a goddamn Toyota commercial. Are you kidding me? Like.
Which was awesome, by the way.
Yeah, just so yes, there's more of those coming in. So
now you're on national TV, dude.
I don't know about that.
All right.
I wish you didn't have to like caress the car.
That was Uber. I didn't have to caress anything.
I know.
It actually turned out really well. Initially, they wanted Uber to be the driver, like an Uber driver, right? But he doesn't have a license, so
Nah.
liability-wise, he just literally couldn't do that last shot where you drive 10 feet. Just you can't do
Oh,
it now when
wow.
you're dealing with companies like that, insurance-wise. So they just switched the roles at the last second. I was like, all right, that's good. Yeah, there should be many more Toyota commercials incoming because that's not the only one that everyone shot. There's several of them, and from what I hear, they're all pretty great. So I'm glad that people have reacted the way they did to it. It's so awkward seeing myself on TV like that.
I think it's very cool. I think
Yep.
it's very cool you've come this far. But talking about grinding it out and putting in the work, how much time do you usually spend preparing in the off days or in between the days when you're casting? Is there a lot of preparation going into the games, or by this point, you've kind of found your groove and it's easy for you to just jump into the game and be ready for it?
I mean, the number one prep that I've always said to people is like, just watch everything, absolutely everything. So, even when I was doing, say, Go To Gamers tournaments, and then there's another tournament that's on for like 5 hours after, I'm like, I got to stay up, I got to watch this. So you watch everything and you absorb as much as possible. But let's see. Monday and Tuesday, I generally consider mostly my days off. I start getting back into the groove more tomorrow. Since my schedule changed. So like Sundays are always just my day. I just do whatever I want. That's Sunday. That's even I have to rest sometimes. Monday, there's often times where I'm doing stuff like this and doing podcasts and stuff. And I just kind of mess around on the internet. Tuesday is when I really start to look forward to the schedule, start making my prep sheets up of like this team versus this team. This is the map list. And like I just have this format that I go by. And then on Wednesday and Thursday, since I don't have to cast those days, I'm always in the studio anyway. One, because catering is awesome and it's free. Two, and then I just sit down and I'm at the computer where I have all my stats, stat access, and I have top-down overview access. So Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm there to watch the games, of course, but I'm usually there pretty early. I think the only person who's like ever earlier at the studio than I am is Monty, because he works really hard as well. But so it's almost like a contest sometimes. If I get there at 11 and Monty comes in 11:15, he's like, "How did you get here before me?" So, but my biggest thing that I use now, because I'd like to integrate it more into broadcast if I can find cool stuff. This week was always going to be odd. It was going to be impossible to do because it's a new meta. But with the top downs, I'll go through and be like, they run this composition on this point, this composition on second point. I mean, you'll hear me a lot in the cast over the last 5 weeks or so saying, this is their style here, this is their style there. And that's going through like top downs and looking at what teams are running. And then if I see like a cool setup or something like that, that I can go down and I can bring it to production and be like, hey, can I have a minute to just say like, this is why their dive failed here. And then we'll do a top down view. So that's all day Wednesday, all day Thursday while watching the games. I'm usually at the studio from, I don't know, like I took this Thursday off. I wasn't feeling well. But I'm usually at the studio from noon or 1 till the games are over at like 10, and most of that time is spent watching the games, but in the downtime going through and doing my daily prep sheets, as I call them, where I have like Dallas versus Florida, then it'll be like, here's the map pool, here are the records, this is what Dallas runs here, this is what Florida runs here, blah 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 blah, and just getting really prepared.
Cool.
I'm
So there
super
is a lot of
jealous
preparation
of the
that goes
top
in the
down.
back.
Yeah, we really want to be able to use top downs in content creation, but right now we just don't think that the tool is ready for public consumption yet. It's pretty rough, but it's nice for us to have. And that's why we're trying to, like, if I see something cool, I really always try to bring it into the show. I think top down is super important.
The top-down view is super amazing for strategy-wise, or like strategy-wise, just being able to see what the teams are doing, how they're moving, their positioning, how they rotate. Like it just tells you so much information that it's so hard to see in the other view. That hopefully the public can get a hold of that.
It's really nice too. I mean, it shows you
Yeah.
abilities. It shows where people are looking. It shows what's going on. Like even just on these little icons, like the little person icon down there is like, oh, he's transcending, and it changes icons. It's pretty sick. Yeah, I mean, it's just like it was kind of an afterthought of a tool, so it's just not ready for public consumption right now. It has to be recoded or something along those lines. So, but it is really nice to have, and that's why I try to bring it into broadcast as often as possible. I think that people will really enjoy it.
Awesome. Glad to hear that. Let me pass it over to Mel to ask a few questions.
Yeah. So let's see. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for this, Andres.
Oh, I caught you off guard
No,
right
you're
here.
fine.
I got you.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so what would you say is the hardest part about being a caster, and what's the part you love the most?
The hardest part is odd. I was actually just thinking about this yesterday. So it's like I can just never take a day off. As far as like a broadcast day, if like everyone has days in life where you're just not feeling it, right? Just not feeling it for whatever reason. Like you didn't sleep well, you got other things going on, you're depressed or anything, right? And everyone just has those off days. And if you have a regular job, you're like, you know what? Not today. Not dealing with this today. I'm gonna call in. I'm laying in bed all day. I'm ordering Chinese food and I'm fixing this. But I can't do that. If I'm having an off day, it doesn't matter. You still got to go on air. You still get pushed there. And like, it sucks because I know that, like, I know there's days where I'm better than others. And I know that just based on how I'm feeling going into it. Let's see, this Friday, I hadn't slept well at all. I got like 2 hours of sleep over the previous 36 hours. And I was just really struggling, but it doesn't matter. You still have to go on and you still have to do your job to the best of your ability. So that's the hardest part, is that you just can't. I mean, you just have to go to work no matter what, and you
can't just go to work and be like, everybody leave me alone. I just need some time. Like, you have to go to work and then perform.
Yeah. So even if you're having a terrible day, you're being judged by 100,000 people.
Dance.
Yeah. So it's just that's the hardest part, and luckily those days don't happen too often. But if you're really feeling sick or something, and as long as your voice still works, you got to go on there. So I guess that's the hardest part, is managing those days that every human being has, where it's like, I'm not at the top of my game today, but I got to do it anyway. So I think that's the hardest part for me.
There's one thing that is a plus for you and the other casters, is you always have Captain Mama Rosa to put a good face on for you going on camera.
I actually told her that. Her and Lorena have been the primary makeup artist for us for a long time, and it actually really is important, because those are like the last people you see. That makeup room is sacred, right? That's the hour before you're on broadcast. That's the last bit of time that you're just getting mindset and right, and like, those two are amazing. We're very good friends, even outside of work too. So. Hanging out with Rosa and Lorena is always awesome, and they always try to get you feeling better. And there's days where I'm like, man, I hope makeup goes well today, and then it'll put me in a better mood, and it makes me have a better broadcast. So very happy for them. And it's also really important that we get to work in duos like this too, because it's very rare that you're both going to have an off day. And whenever you're having an off day, like, you just need someone to pick you up, right? And it's like, I'm not going to be bringing it today, so Sam, you gotta go nuts. And he's like, I got it, no problem. And then halfway through, it'll like pick you back up. So there's a lot of ways to deal with that and stuff, but it's just like, you just can't ever phone in a day. And it just sucks. Like, I know, well, there's days I know that I'm better, and there's days I know that I'm not as good. And hopefully those days that are not as good aren't terrible. And then I just won't watch them again. There's no point. There's no point in doing VOD review of a game that you feel you had a bad game on, because like, you're not, wow, I could turn this bad game into a good game. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's over, and you're making like simple mistakes, pronunciation mistakes, vocal issues, and stuff like that. So you're never going to learn anything from trying to review a bad VOD. You look at your best stuff and be like, oh, this could have been even better here. So I just, that's the toughest part. Like I said, luckily it doesn't happen often. Friday it was okay. I looked at those VODs and I was making some mistakes just vocally, and it's just a tiredness, man. My body just wouldn't sleep for whatever. But it doesn't matter. I have to go to work.
Well, it wasn't as bad as you think.
Oh, never.
If you were making mistakes, we didn't notice it that much, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah, it never is, and you always notice it the most, right? Our talent coach used to always tell us, like, that your best is never as good as you think it is, and your worst is never as bad as you think it is. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And the best part is, I don't know, it's just like being in the game, like, and it's gonna sound cliche, but like, I actually really just love being in the game. And those days where I'm like having a bad day, it's so crazy. So I'll be having a bad day, then all of a sudden, like, I'm in game, and it's just like this different part of my brain kicks on, and I'm just happy, and I'm in game, and this is what I love to watch, and I get excited and I get happy for it. So, I mean, it's cliche, like, the best part of casting Overwatch is casting Overwatch, but yeah, I mean, it's my favorite part is just like, just get me in game. Let's just watch these teams, and then everything else kind of goes away. Like, anything else that you're dealing with, or if you're tired, it doesn't matter, because you just get to do the thing that you love the most, and you get paid for it. And it's crazy. And also, like, our talent crew is just amazing. Everyone's good friends, and it's you get to go work with your friends and watch video games. How could there be any better part of that? And also, the cadence.
Well,
it is crazy. You guys seem to be pretty close, and you work all day together, and then you guys seem to hang out a little bit, at least outside of work.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think you're closest with? Who do you spend the most time with?
That's kind of interesting. I actually spend a lot of time going out with Rosa and Lorena from Makeup. Summer always comes out. The last couple of weeks, I spent a lot of time with Josh and Bren. Monty is usually pretty busy. Doa's, he's got a wife and he's a bit more of a homebody. But I like every time I do get to spend time with him. Matt never leaves his house. He just plays Fortnite at home constantly. But Matt is awesome. He's one of the funniest human beings I know. If you get his sense of humor, he's the funniest person on the planet. I think I'm pretty close with everybody, but I think those are the people we end up going out with most. Me and Summer usually, right, hang out for a little bit, and we're always off at the same time, right? We're off and we're on at the same time, so we're hanging out in the talent lounge and we're doing whatever. So we've got to be pretty good friends. And that Brennan Sideshow I just find so absolutely amusing. Hang out with them. And so pretty much everybody. I don't know if I'm like closer or closest with anyone in particular, but we all end up, going out in different groups here and there. And I think we all get along in different ways. So there's no one that I don't get along with.
Well, that's something that I definitely noticed coming out there a few times, is that it's kind of like a restaurant where shift ends and everybody's like, where are you going? Where are you going? And then everybody oftentimes end up in the same spot.
Yeah, well, I mean, Guildhall is the haunt around here.
Guildhall is definitely a place.
So it's an esports bar, so you go in there and like Overwatch is on TV. Everyone kind of knows you there, which is always cool. And it's like I like going to Guildhall because it's close to my house, so it's my biggest draw to it.
For sure.
My biggest draw is I can go out and then drive home, so it's not that big a deal. So yeah, no, it's been really fun, and that was always it was actually a big consideration when building the talent team of like, look, we're going to have to spend a lot of time together. Everyone's going to have to be able to get along and be adults and be friends here, because this is going to be a long year, just work-wise and everything. So if we have some sort of discord between anyone in the talent team, it's going to make it worse and worse and worse. So let's get people who get along and who are also good at their jobs. And I think the people who assembled the talent team did a fantastic job of that.
Yeah,
awesome.
For sure.
Bob, you want to take some questions about the new meta?
Yeah. So, dude, the new meta is here and stuff has changed quite a bit. What are your first impressions of Brigitte?
First impressions is that I can't say Brigitte very well.
Yep. I know. I totally watched that last week.
I don't know, man. I'm trying. The moment that they announced it to us, which was a while before it was actually announced to the public, the moment they said the name, I'm like, oh, I'm in trouble. I tried to figure out why, and I think I figured out like 3 decent reasons why. One, it's a completely made up name. It's like, it's clever. It's this name, but it's pronounced in this way. So it's like my brain has nothing else to relate it to. It's a brand new word that I'm trying to fit in. But everyone else seems fine with this. 2, it's linguistically, it's challenging. If you just say the 3 syllables, it's Brigitte, and you use 3 different parts of your mouth to say all 3 of them. B is up front with your lips, G is back in the throat, T is with your tongue at the top. So it's like this really jumble of a word sandwich.
You've really thought about this word.
I haven't been thinking about it for the last 2 days. I'm making excuses for myself.
But is it as hard as FNRGFE?
Oh, FNRGFE? That's fine. I got used to that one real quick.
I feel like when you messed it up on cast, I feel like Deathblow had a little like party to himself because he refuses to say it correctly.
Yeah, no, when I opened up the show, because I told everyone, I'm like, I'm just not going to ever say it right. So when I opened up the show on Friday, I called her 5 different names intentionally to set people up for the failure. I was like, we're now in the Britney meta, so it really depends on who's going to play your Brenda. And when Brianna comes into play, are you going to have a good Broomhilda? Right? So, like, I was trying to set people
You're
up.
setting the standard low. So
yeah, setting people up for my inevitable failure. Third, and I think this is the biggest thing, is that it's 3 syllables, right? Which is rare in Overwatch. And even when you have 3-syllable names, they're often shortened. So you rarely hear mid-fight someone say Zenyatta. It's always Zen, right? Or even even 2-syllable names. Reinhardt is Rein, Roadhog is Road, or Hog, or whichever one. With Brigitte, you can't really shorten it to anything. So you have to say the full thing. It's kind of a word sandwich. And anyway, so those are all my excuses. Clearly, I'm the only one who has struggled with this name, but I've tried to figure out why. I'll practice it. I don't know. Maybe it'll just become funny. I don't think it's that big of a deal.
No, it's not. Sideshow messed it up too. Don't worry.
Yeah, and sometimes you just go like Brigitte and you don't go the A, and then people are like, oh, you screwed it up. It's like, no, I kind of just shortened it.
I always tell her something different, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It's strange. We'll get there. We'll get used to it. Hopefully we just find some sort of cool nickname for her or something. But her thoughts on her in the meta. I think it's awesome. I love week one metas when everything shifts and everyone's trying to figure things out. We've seen so much different play time from so many different people, and how you play Brigitte is different for some teams than others, and what you want to play with her is different. So I think it's good to have something that shakes up dive, and it's not like she completely crushes dive. You've seen, teams run dive against Brigitte, and it's just about dodging stuns and getting to where she isn't. So the big thing about dive is it's super mobile, and she's not. So if she's not there, just go kill something else. I think the biggest play I saw was I think Seoul versus San Francisco. I mean, we're on Gibraltar, and he just solo rallies and chases down this Mercy, and it's like the last fight of the game. Solo rallies and chase down this Mercy, and he leaves his backline totally exposed, and then the Genji gets back there and just ruins it. It's the end of it. So I think how she plays with different comps is really interesting. I love that we're getting Pharah now being a little more competitive in some of these matches too. I think she can be a good answer to it. Rally is an interesting ult because it's not a mid-fight ultimate. It's like this setup ult, which is different. So I think people overreacted to, it's going to be Brigitte every game. It's going to be Ryan Zarya Brigitte every game. So I think it's still shaking out. And I think I don't really care if you like the hero or you don't. It changed the meta, and I think that's a good thing overall. It's always good to have some shakeup in the meta, and this has been one of the most interesting weeks of Overwatch in recent memory.
Have you played on competitive ladder recently? Because I beg to differ, Brigitte is in every game.
Yeah, that's the competitive ladder where if you try to do something different at all, you're just going to get yelled at for it. I play the competitive ladder, and actually I like this meta right now. One, because at least it's different, at least it's new, and two, like I get to play Zarya again, and Zarya was like season 1 main.
Some heroes have come out for sure.
So yeah, I mean, look, at the top of the meta on ladder, it's super stale, but it's always that way, no matter what the meta is. No one ever lets you change anything. They're like, hey, no, don't do that. You're like, yeah, but I'm going to do it this way, and if we do it this, like, no fun allowed. Play the meta. So,
no fun allowed.
It's how it's always been.
I have a friend like that.
Thing, go for it, Bob.
No, I was just saying I have a friend that just always wants to play meta.
Oh, yeah. I will say, though, this is the first time that I've seen such diversity on the Overwatch League, because aside from like maybe the very first stage when people were figuring out every other one's teams and what was their main roster, dive became kind of like the main thing, and it was run almost exclusively every map, except for a few maps where Reinhardt would come up here and there, maybe Junkrat here and there, Pharah here and there, but it was so exclusive. But now every map is just this constant diversity, and then you see teams swap from the dive into more a Brigitte thing, or maybe teams like the Houston Outlaws that were using some of their DPS to swap into the Brigitte. Some of their teams were using their off tank to swap into the Brigitte. So like you said, everything is very creative and up in the air, and I feel like a lot of things are working right now. We'll have to wait to see if it settles down more, or we'll go back to certain teams, but I don't know. Right now, it seems pretty healthy, and like there's a lot of counterplay that is available at everyone's hands.
Overwatch is at its best when people have to switch heroes. It always has been. That's why this game is designed. That's why like the maps that I've always loved, it almost force that. Dorado is similar to that. It's very difficult to run the same comp from first to last on Dorado, unless it's just pure dive, as we've seen. Hollywood also has always been one of my favorite maps, because what you run on first is not what you run on second. And then because you have to make switches, and ult management becomes so much more important. It just becomes a much more complex game than like, all right, dive v dive, let's go. Who's got the better Genji today? Like, it just becomes so much more interesting to me. And now you're going to see it as well in OWL. Like, yes, the meta shifting, but as this goes on, as seasons go on, teams are going to start running different compositions against other teams, different strategies. Like, this team likes to run dive, so we have to run that. Like, it's going to just keep evolving. But I agree with you. It's one of the healthiest places that at least the professional level has been in for quite a while. Hopefully it stays like this. And I think it will, because Brigitte kind of forces you to change stuff and play a little differently, even if that's just like one hero switching to something else. And I think it was good to have anti-dive. And as someone I played nothing but Tracer for like 3 seasons, and now you can't really play Tracer like that well, or you can't play it on competitive because you get yelled at. So, but I still think it's good. I think it's good for the game that you have to switch heroes. Like, I think that might be the design philosophy going forward of like. At first, I didn't like the idea of like the devs saying, well, we don't like dive meta, so we're going to bring in an anti-dive hero. At first, it just rubbed me the wrong way, but I think I was wrong and that this is the right way to do it. Let's never make sure that one set of heroes gets too dominant, and they can still be good. Everyone can still be good and still be used, but just not from first point on this map to the last point on offense and on defense. Then it gets stale.
Right.
Yeah,
Do you
definitely.
think that there was some teams that were just stubborn this last week or hadn't adapted yet and still just running dive? Because there was a couple teams that we saw that kind of, and most notably, I will say Shanghai. Like I
I
feel
was gonna
like,
say Shanghai Dragons.
what's
Yeah.
happening, guys? Like you've got the best Zarya. Like why aren't you playing Zarya Rhine? You know, maybe not the best Zarya in the league, but
All
definitely
I know is Mickey
best take on
left
the
click to
team.
win.
Yeah, she's up there as far as the best Zarya's in the league, in my opinion. I think it just the meta shifting hit Shanghai at the worst possible time because they dive is really good for teams that aren't it's going to sound antithetical, but it's good for teams that don't have perfect communication because you don't really have to call that much. You call your target, then everyone's in, and it's one of the very default metas because it's seen as pretty easy to coordinate. Oh, this is what we do, that's it, and this is how we play, that's it. And then they started getting really good at it, and so I knew that they were going to continue to try it. I think Oasis just killed any notion of it because dive can still work. We saw what San Francisco was able to do against Brigitte with Sinatra and stuff. It can still work. It just depends on picking your targets a little better and not engaging that front line. Just use your mobility to pull them out of position. And there's ways, but yeah, I don't know. Pro players are stubborn at the and at the very top of the ladder. People are stubborn, and you don't want to be that team that tries something new and look foolish for it, I guess. So. And then it's like,
You mean like running Brigitte on main tank as Muma on Watchpoint Gibraltar?
Yeah, but that series was over by then, right?
Yeah,
So
it was, but that was hilarious.
Yeah,
it was hilarious, but it was you are playing with house money at that point, and I think it's something they wanted to try. I think the Outlaws are a really fun team because they're never really going to go standard, right? They didn't have the tools to run standard dive. They had a bunch of different stuff, so they've been kind of meta breakers for a while.
For sure.
They're one of the more creative teams, that's for sure. I think this is a good point to just jump straight into the recap of last week and just get straight into the games. Let's start with the very first one, Gladiators versus Shock, because I think that this was a very interesting game. It shows that the Gladiators are a team that is very adaptable and was one of the teams that suffered the least from this change in meta, in my opinion. I think that their players were very quick to adopt the new playstyle. They're not afraid to bring out the Brigitte. They're not afraid to swap their players into different roles. And it was showing this week. I think that they had a fantastic week, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of their games. I want to hear your take on them, Hanks.
I think the Gladiators are always going to be in position when the meta shifts to be able to play it because they have such versatile players. And I mean, I've written a love letter to Shore Forward since the beginning of the league. He's been playing since closed beta. Used to accidentally queue into most of the former Cloud9 guys. That was not fun. But yeah, they just do have the versatility on this team to be able to adapt, to be able to play several different things. So I think that's going to help them out going forward. San Francisco is an interesting team because it feels like there are games where they look godlike and they can play everything, and then there are games where it's like, what is this team? Why are you doing this to me? And they have some players on DPS who just have enormous games and then they'll just disappear for the game. So it's difficult to tell how good the Gladiators are based on how they played against the Shock. But I think going forward, this is a team that has always had a ton of versatility. And I mean, that backline works so well together. They've been on teams together for a while, Shaz and Big Goose. And then when you want to run, they're a team that'll run solo support and just let Shaz go play whatever he wants too. It's so crazy. So, and then they've got the projectile DPS players as well that can come in, and then we'll see what kind of role that Asher has going forward because he was mostly either Tracer Ace, and you don't see a ton of Tracer here.
Not anymore. You guys want to add anything here to the field or Gladiators, Mel or Bob?
No. I mean, the Gladiators fuel game was 4-0, but that definitely doesn't tell the tale. It was still pretty close. But the Gladiators seem to be they're fine with running Brigitte. That is the one thing that I noticed.
right?
Yeah, and not
The
stubborn
Pichu.
about it either. Not like we have to run her, but definitely putting her in when needed. I think the Gladiators are looking good, but again, they played the Fuel and they played Shock, and Shock's very inconsistent, like Hex was saying. I think we're probably not going to see a ton from them next week either, with them playing Mayhem and what else do they play? Oh, Outlaws. Well, that might be a good game. The Outlaws versus Gladiators, see kind of who
I'm
stacks
looking
up.
forward to that one. Both very creative teams, yeah. Let's talk about Dynasty. Dynasty versus Valiant was the first game that we saw this week. And I don't know, Dynasty still seems to be trying to find their stride. They've been at a loss. I feel they have moments of brilliance, but then they kind of like stumble here and there. Valiant, on the other hand, is looking quite good this week. They've been a team that's been on the rise. I think that their players are doing fantastic. Soon is one of those tracer players, in my opinion, that is in one of the best positions to transition into this meta because you don't see a lot of tracer players playing anything else. But Soon, on the other hand, you've seen him play the Widowmaker to a really high level, and I think that
We've
I don't
seen
know,
a
this is
few
gonna benefit
tracers
him.
do that though.
Yeah, well, Soon wasn't even playing Tracer for them recently because they had Bunny in, right? So
Right.
Soon's been on their Widow
Yeah.
form for quite a long time. He's been their Widow player, and in the last 3 stages, you've had to run Widow. I mean, since the last 4 stages, you've had to run Widow. So he's been transitioned off of that Tracer for a while. He's considered a Tracer ace, of course, but he's shown that he can definitely play that Widow and whatever else they
Yeah.
really need.
He played a
What do
little
you
bit
think
of
of
Brigitte
Valiant?
too, though. Actually, Valiant had three different people play Brigitte, which I thought was interesting. Most teams haven't done that, to my recollection.
There was a few teams that had 2 or 3 people kind of swapping on and off. I think it just depended on what DPS or what tank they needed at that time, and they'd have somebody else come in from what I saw in the games.
What do you think of Valiant in this new metagame Hex? How are they looking?
I think they're going to be fine. I don't know why they chose to throw away a map at the end of their most recent set, and they brought in 4 players off the bench. I guess it's just to give them playtime, but yeah, I don't know. Map differential has bitten Valiant in the past, so I think I made the statement in one of the Player of the Day segments, which I don't know if people even watch, but they go up on YouTube. So we pick players of the day. Whoever cast the last set of the day picks players of the day. So I do 2 of them, and I think I gave the last one to Neptuno, but the broad statement was the teams at the very top have the best support play and the teams at the bottom do not. If you look at all the teams at the bottom of the league, you could look at their supports and be like, yeah, you could maybe consider getting an upgrade at some of these positions. But then you've got Kareev and Custa on this team who are ridiculously good support players. So as much as you're going to always look at DPS and they get the flashy plays, it's really, to me, the best teams in the league have the best back lines. I think Custa was such a great acquisition. Kareev going back over to flex support has been good. Excuse me. Custa is such a good caller. Fate might be just tragically underrated or overlooked. Space is an absolute enigma at off tank. Like I think people are still sleeping on him. They don't understand just how good his diva was. It's going to be a matter of if his Zarya can step up if they need that. His Roadhog has always been prolific as well. So I think they're just really well-rounded. And, Agilities has just some crazy moments on games. And he's seemed to step up since he got taken to the parking lot of a burger joint and told his job was on the line.
And it will do that to you.
I suppose.
Yeah, well, the other team that you mentioned there, Seoul didn't look like they wanted anything to do with Brigitte. And they're ones that I think are struggling from the tank line rather than the support line.
Yeah,
What do you think Soul is struggling with right now?
I think Jaehong's been fine on Winston. I worry about when he has to play Reinhardt. He's getting kind of abused in these Rhine game situations. And it's not his fault. He's not a tank player, really. And Winston and Ryan do not really play similar at all. Like if you ask people like, do you play tanks? Usually it's not like it just on ladder. It's like I couldn't play Winston, I can't play Ryan. So I think that's a difficult transition. I think Fleta is doing the best that he can with what he's got around him. The support line has been in flux. They're still just running different rosters all the time. I don't think they've ever had enough time to completely gel the way that they needed to. Toby and Gambler have been like, okay. Munchkin is, I don't know. It's just like no one's having carry games. And then Wakid has games where I think he's a very good player. Then he has games where he makes decisions that I just do not understand. Not to say that he's right or wrong. It's just I don't understand how he plays. So this has been a strange team for a long time. It feels like they just throw darts at a board and that's the six we're going to play that day. And it's very difficult when you have these teams like New York, who's just like pretty much roster locked. Like these are players, these guys play these maps, this is it. And that like it just seems so much more structured. And I think Seoul, when they started struggling, just really wanted to mix things up. And so far it has not been grand.
Same thing that the Fuel has done, basically. If you look at them, they've played so many different comps and roster lineups, way more than any other team.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is, I think teams that are going to be in the best position have the structure and the plan in place so they don't have to worry about anything except executing. They know that on Gibraltar second, this guy switches to this, and then we move here. Like everything is just in place, so it's 100% just about execution for them. So
that's
I
right.
think that's where Dallas and Seoul have struggled a little bit.
That's a reason why I really think it would help a lot if the coaches could talk to the players more throughout matches, like in between offense and defense. Say, hey, so and so's doing this, so and so's doing this. You watch this, and just a real quick little snippets. I think would help a lot. But then,
I mean, they talked to him in halftime. Those plans should be in place. Those plans should be in place during practice and scrims anyway. At some point, like your players have to make decisions as well based on what they're seeing, and all your coaching is leading into preparation. It's like in the NFL, like you can talk to them between each play, but like during the play, you're not in your quarterback's headset. You're like, throw the fly route. Like you can't do that.
Well, see, that's what I'm talking about. Like the coaches for sure get to talk to players in between offense and D in NFL. So why not just let them talk in between rounds to the players? Because I think that would really help a lot. But this is my opinion.
I actually don't know. It's that's league operations. That's not my division.
Yeah, and he could, but I honestly think that Dynasty's main weakness is, like you said, their main tank lineup. And recently we had a statement from Miro. It was translated, I think, from his Twitter or one. It was a blog form, and basically he was saying that he's been off, taking his time. He's been finding himself, and apparently he's been training in this new thing. But he was very confident in his statement. A lot of people are saying that we should be looking out for this new Miro returning, and you have to take into account that this is their main tank. This is their Reinhardt and their Winston player. So I wonder if his return might have anything to do or might help the team in any way.
It could. He's a very good player. I think people don't really quite understand that the fatigue and mental aspect that is hitting so many of these teams, and we started seeing it more in stage 3. Like look, I started getting fatigue. Talent started getting fatigue. You could feel fatigue in the entire arena. And we, personally, in my opinion, I've a rather easy job compared to what the players have to do every day for every week. And then you've got people living away from home for the first time ever, and like it all just starts adding up. So it's not just like, why is his mouse movement not the same? No, it's like brains need to adjust and the support system needs to be there in place to give people time off, to sense it before it becomes a problem, and help these players who are all young men for the most part, and it's a whole new experience for them. So I think a lot of this, and I've said this since like stage 2, where the teams that have the best structure in place for their players are going to succeed eventually. You heard a lot of the stories about perhaps Florida not having the best structure surrounding them, and then the players being fatigued because of it. But on the flip side, you have a team like Philly, who maybe don't have the most talented roster just straight in the world. I would make an argument to the opposite of that. But they don't have to worry about anything. Everything is taken care of for them. Chef, transportation. Everything is taken care of for them. Their only job is to be players, and I think you see that kind of role coming into fruition. Beautiful house too.
They even have a treehouse. They even
Yes,
have a
I've
treehouse.
been.
All right, you heard it here first. Philly Fusion is the best team to play for.
Oh yeah. I mean, I haven't been to everyone's team house, right? I've been to the Philly team house and they fed me, so like, but
You're
you can
biased.
definitely no, but you can see though that they don't have to worry about anything. No one has to
Right.
cook. No one has to drive. No one like just play the game. We got everything else. Social media, their social media team takes care of everything. Like all of them are like at the entire structure of that organization, from the very top ownership down, is absolutely killing it.
That's
Do you
awesome.
think do you think it helps build a little bit of better camaraderie with them being in the same house as opposed to some of the teams that have individual apartments and things like that?
Probably. I mean, that's a double-edged sword, though, right? Because familiarity can breed contempt as well. If, like, God, just get away from me. I see you all day at work, all day at home. You know, like it doesn't matter who you are.
Freaking fraggy.
You could
Why
be
are you
best,
so messy?
but like you could be best friends with somebody, and then you live with them for a day, and you're like, oh my God, right? So maybe it helps them, maybe it doesn't. I mean, the house is big enough that like if you don't want to see someone, you can go to your bedroom. It's fine. So I think. I don't know. Maybe camaraderie is not the right word, but I think there's up two minds of it because it is good though that they don't have to like play and work in the same place because when they have practice rooms at the arena, they can go and actually scrim. And of course, they have their giant setup at the house as well, but it does seem like a decent separation for them. I don't know what the right answer is to treat it more like a job and like going to work and now you scrim 8 hours and you get to go home and be by yourself, or if you have to, or if you just live the life. I think they both have positives and negatives.
Well,
Yeah,
they
it'll probably
talk
depend on the
about
players themselves.
one thing that probably helps with that is they talk about how they do different teams of 6 that go and actually practice at the arena every day, and they shuffle it so that they're not around the same people every day all day. So I think that's pretty good too.
Well, Joe has always said, and I've always 100% agreed with him on this, if you don't have 12 people on your roster, you're doing it wrong because you need to be able to do in-house scrims and you need to be able to rotate people and get people rested, get people sharp, see what you got, train people up on new heroes while you're spending time in the off season. So I think it's really helped them a lot that they've always been able to run like A team, B team, and like B team's not a pejorative term either. It's just, the lettering system.
All right, talking about teams who don't have as much of a good structure, let's go into Dallas Fuel versus Shanghai Dragons. Fuel was able to beat the Shanghai Dragons pretty handily. Dragons, this was their chance, a lot of people were saying, but they were not able to seize it. In fact, it looked like the Dragons were stumbling pretty bad this game. They were just not finding their game, and Fuel took advantage of it. I think Fuel looked decent in this game, but definitely once they went up against a team like Gladiators later in the week, it really shows some of their weaknesses, falling to a 4-0. What do you think of Fuel and Dragons? Let's start with Fuel first.
Oh, I don't know. It's so difficult to talk about Fuel. It's like they've shown signs of life. There are a lot of old school players have been around since the beginning of time. Like the team used to be envious. Before that, they're actually called IDDQD before they even picked up by a team. So like these guys have been playing together forever. And it's very difficult to pinpoint the exact issues that they're having because sometimes they can look decent, but only against like really bad teams. And other times they look. I mean, I think overall it's probably an offense issue. Their defense has been fine on several maps. They can hold you to a 1.5 on Blizzard World, but then they can't take Blizzard World A. And that's been an issue for them going through. A lot of times their offense looks not as coordinated as you would like a dive to look, and then they keep just running their head into the wall, and I think frustration starts getting with them there too. And obviously some of the roster issues have not helped that team out, but their defense is fine, and it's just easier to coordinate a defense. Everyone goes here, everyone does this, we do that, and then offense, they just can't find it. They can't find whatever they're missing. I'm not certain what it is, but they don't look like the most coordinated dive I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would
There
definitely
was a
agree with that.
there was a big splash for Mickey playing the Brigitte. He even released some videos explaining how he was playing and some tricks and stuff. Are we seeing Brigitte being played really well by the Fuel, or was it more of the show of that first match and the new meta Did we see other teams perform better with her, or is Mickey the real deal?
It's hard to tell with Brigitte play, just because I don't necessarily know how she operates yet at the pro level either. So like, who's playing her well, who isn't playing her well. I can tell you not to do what he did and go off solo. But that was that was like the show he put on Oasis with Brigitte against Shanghai was mostly Shanghai's fault. They Shanghaied themselves, right? They just kept rolling into it. Like, there's no way he can stun and combo me again. Yeah, well, he just did.
Stun, whip, bang. Yep.
Yeah, no, I think it works for them. I think but if you want to run the Brigitte, right? It's just so strange to me that like, if you want to run Brigitte like that and play a slower style, then just really commit to it and really play a slower style on offense, and then they still try to go to like dive and stuff, and it just doesn't work out for them. I think their offensive push on Oasis City Center is always so cool to me, because I feel like that is their style perfected, where they get Coco on the edge on Orisa, they sit in that corner just on the point, they're watching flanks, they got Brigitte, and they say, come at me. You can come at me. We're not going after you. Come after me. Obviously, that works better on control maps than it would on a map where you have to push. So I don't know. I still think they're trying to find their style. I think Siegel's shown flashes on the Pharah. I think he's always been a very decent Pharah. Nice to see him get more play time. But now you're asking people to play Diva, Zarya, and Pharah. Like, the pools that you're asking people to play are very interesting. So there remains to be a few issues there. And I don't know. Harry Hook and Chips have been playing together for a very long time, but I struggle to remember the last time that I saw that either of them have a monstrous game where they take over on supports. And if you look at almost every other team in the league, you look at one of them and be like, oh, do you remember this game? This guy went absolutely nuts on Zan or even on Mercy. Like, do you remember this game? And so far they've been fine, but they're not necessarily being the playmakers that some of the other teams have on support.
Yeah. Harry's not made the best transition to Mercy. That is for sure.
And it kills me too, because like I said, I've known this guy for a long time. I've been casting
I got his jersey, man. I've got Harry's jersey, so it definitely kills me too.
But you know what? It's also you can never just put it on like one group of people or one line too, because they've had to work with different tanks and different DPS, and they all play different styles. So it's like, okay, so in this style I go in with him, and in this style I let him die. Like, it's just the cohesion, because they've been trying such sort of things. It's actually very interesting in OWL, because when things aren't working, then you try to switch things up, and then they're going to continue to not work for a while. You just have to bite that bullet and be like, all right, we just have to see if this is going to work. But it seems so reactive with like, things aren't working, let's switch up our roster. Oh, we lost another set. Well, let's switch up our roster again. And like, it's this cyclical thing where you're never going to figure out what the problem is if you just keep changing stuff.
Right. They just can't settle. And I think that's their biggest issue. And it always has been. It seems like they're always at the top of the gossip list for everybody talking about OWL. There's always something new happening with that team or some change. And it affects more than just the people that aren't there anymore or are there now. Every single person that's playing with a new person, every map feels that pull. And hopefully they can figure it out, get it together. But they showed moments again this week. They didn't look as bad as Shanghai. They looked in a different tier than Shanghai, I think, which was good.
And I would say,
it kind of just like shows you, like, and no one wants Shanghai to win more than me. Like I told you, I spent a lot of time broadcasting Chinese Overwatch, so I knew some of these players coming in, so I was rooting for them. But kind of shows you where Shanghai is, that they look that bad against Dallas.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's been kind of the thing. That was why I was like, guys, Shanghai's not gonna beat Dallas. Like, Dallas has been close in a lot of games, been dumpstered here and there. Shanghai's been dumpstered the entire season. I mean, they have half of the map wins that Dallas does. So I think Shanghai is just going to catch someone. I think if they get a win by the end, it's because they're going to catch someone sleeping.
Yeah, I also think that they could get a win against a team if they just get. Well, all of these players have had monstrous performances at different times. They've just never had them together. I mean, I could show you games where Fearless looks like the best main tank in the league. And obviously, I think Aguri's been super consistent on all of her play as well. Her Diva play has been ridiculously good. Dia, I think people still don't understand what a god this guy can be.
If he plays Widow and not Tracer, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah, Dia's Widow is still up there with the best of them right now. And then, I mean, I don't know why they weren't playing Otto. Otto's Genji has been just amazing at times. I still think, back to the old thing that their support line could use some work. I think that altering has gotten better throughout the season. I don't know if I could say the exact same for Free Field or Five King. I think they're kind of still the same players. And then I'm not sure why Sky isn't playing. I've talked a lot about Sky, formerly known as Zhu Fanjun, was one of the best support players in all of China, all of the Chinese region, behind only a fellow named actually Shai, interestingly enough, that he changed his name to Sky now. But he's a great Ana player. His Zen has been okayish, but I think he's got the most potential of the flex support players on that team. But I think Altering's playing a little bit better. He's not just taking very risky resurrections and getting rocked. So they're all capable. It's just like when Dia has a good game, then Otto disappears. And then Otto has a good game. And where's Dia been all game? And it's just like they can't put it together all at the same time. But I think they're capable of beating some teams if they can fix that issue.
Now, recently, Shanghai Dragons management themselves released this statement apologizing for the losses, and they've been known to do this before for their fans and for their players, for everyone. But it's a statement apologizing, and I think they were getting criticized by some people because their players on their off time were playing other games. So they came out with a statement and said, hey, so sorry about the losses, but our players have a very rigorous training regime, and they revealed that their players practice for almost 12, sometimes 16 hours for 6 days a week, which seems really, really excessive. So at this point, do we think that Shanghai Dragons are almost getting overworked a little bit? I'm not saying like their players are getting abused or anything, but maybe their training regime is just a little too harsh to the point where burnout might even be harder for players like this that have so much pressure on them, right? They've lost every match. They're overworking themselves, praying every day, and the results are not really showing. In fact, it's quite the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not a coach, and so I don't know what the players need or what they don't need. But first of all, anyone in the community who's knocking players who are playing games that aren't Overwatch in their off time, knock it off. Knock it off, because these guys do need to have their own life as well. Sorry that
absolutely.
It's their job, and they play Overwatch as their job, and they love it. But at a certain point, you just want to play Hearthstone. You want to do whatever games they're playing. I don't know. But leave them alone. 12 to 16 hours a day seems overly harsh, and I've always been, and then just my personal opinion, I've always thought of quality over quantity. There's such a thing as having bad practice as well. Like you're practicing bad things and you're doing it over and over again, and now you can't fix an error. So I think 6 hours of more directed scrims practice or whatever seems like enough. I think I know some other teams that only do like 4 to 6 hours a day, but they focus on it really hard and they do it. But at a certain point, by hour 14 of practice, are you getting any better? Are you getting any better from
your brain is dead.
So in my opinion, I wouldn't do things that way. I think this might be a reaction to just a cultural difference of people expect you to work as much as humanly possible. And maybe management isn't being entirely truthful when they say 12 to 16, but they need to put it out there that don't worry, these guys are going that way. So I don't know. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know the inner workings. I personally don't think if I was running a team that I would practice my team that hard. I would give them time off and we would have more focused practice. But again, that's just my opinion, and I don't know the inner workings of that team. It seems excessive to me, but if that's what the coach feels his team needs to get better, then who am I to argue?
Work smarter, not harder. All right, but let's talk about some of the other teams. Some of the teams that are doing really well right now in the league. Houston Outlaws is a team that is looking quite good right off the bat. They seem to be in the groove. They're playing really well together. They had a moment there where you could see a little burnout happening in them, but it seems like they're really refreshed this season. And not only that, the team is looking really good in the new meta. The players have been adapting really well. We've seen Jake come back on the Junkrat. He's playing a ton of Brigitte. He's playing a little bit of Farah and even Tracer, because she's not completely gone away. And I don't know, the team just seems really cohesive right now. It's a pleasure to watch because they've had some of the most creative compositions so far and succeeded with them. Not only try them out, but had good success with them. And not only saying that, they went up against London Spitfire, not an easy opponent, and Uprising, the number 2 team of last stage. What do we think of the Outlaws here?
I mean, to be fair, the Outlaws have beat London Spitfire like
many times.
They've got their number. And Boston Uprising was really good in the dive meta, and Houston was really bad when they needed a tracer. So I think this is definitely Houston's time. I mean, we always knew it, unless they got a tracer or miraculously Jake got 1,000 times better at tracer overnight, or the meta changed, that's when Houston was going to do good. And I think that this is going to be good for them. I think they're really good at figuring out new heroes. I think their game sense is really high. And so figuring this out, I feel like Houston's got a really good shot at it. And I hope to see them continue on their winning streak.
They just seem really happy overall. They seem like they're in a good mental space. Every time I see them at the stadium arena, they're always hanging out together and just smiling and laughing. And I don't know, it's so funny. Like the passion that Jake has for the game, I almost can't really even express to you. Like I'll sit down and talk to him, be like, "Hey, how you guys doing?" Just not even talk about the game, just about life. And he's like, "Have you been playing New Hanzo?" And like he talks to me for like 30 minutes, just like I was just like on my way out grabbing an Uber, and I was like, "Hey Matt, and hey Jake, how you guys doing?" And then he just talks to me for like 30 minutes about the meta and like how excited he is and how good Hanzo is and like this is broken, but this is great. And like and he just goes on and on and on, and I'm like, "Oh, my car's here. Good talking to you guys." But like now they're just really they seem happy right now. The meta, of course, is going to favor them. I don't think he was thrilled to play Tracer. He did it because he had to. He was never a Tracer main on his old teams either. Like the LG Evil team, he was not a Tracer. He was jack of all trades. He was 76. He was PAR. He was whatever else you needed, but he wasn't the Tracer player for that team. So yeah, I think they're happy, and obviously the meta is going to favor them. And now they get to play Spree for the first time, who's an outrageous Zarya. I asked Matt, I'm like, "Do you guys feel you're telegraphing, what comps you're going to run when you put Spree in? Like, obviously he's going to play Zarya, and like, you've been only on D.Va forever." And he's like, "We're trying. We could always mix it up." He's like, "I can play Zarya. Matt can play everything. He just had to be on the D.Va role for the last couple of years." And he's like, and it actually doesn't matter. Like they're not going to stop Spree Zarya anyway. So I think that they've had versatility, and yeah, I mean, like they're a really clever team as far as trying out comps and making them work. And now they've got even additional coaching on that team to help them out as Kai comes over. Linkser can take over games. There's nothing bad about this team. They have everything that they need to work. They've got 2 main tanks. They've got enough people on that team where they can sub people in, sub them out, have specialists, have times off. So also, I think it was really important for them at the time to have the stage end break, right, and just get some time off. Everyone needed it after the end of stage 3, but I think Houston specifically. And yeah, they look happy, and Jake loves playing Hanzo, and so when you have a happy team and you're winning, everything is going right for you.
I will say, Linkser's Widowmaker is looking very scary in this stage, man. He's had some really good moments on that Widow.
Well,
He's
he
always
was
had-
amazing, and he kind of dropped off a little bit, I think,
Mhm.
just based on their team play.
Yeah.
They couldn't
Right.
protect him as much. They were diving in more at Linkser, and he wasn't able to get the shots. But this week, whew.
Yeah, people always give me
Linkser's
grief
back.
for starting the Linkser's the best counter sniper argument, right? And because I've said that actually since like 2.5 years ago. I used to watch him play in Hollywood against teams and just body people as that counter sniper. That was before I had stats or anything, so it was just like an eye test, right? He just looks like he's winning these things. And then I think he actually was the stats sussed out in stage 1, like the best counter sniper.
Mhm.
And then his team just, everything fell apart a little bit. And it's not even like him really. It's like we got so many more snipers in the league now that just became ridiculous. But he's looking good for stage 4. I think his stats on Gibraltar are insanity. There was something I watched earlier today. He's only played an hour and 40 minutes. All these other amazing top tier Widows combined to play 3 hours, and he has like 3 times the amount of Widow kills as anyone else. So he just owns Gibraltar.
There we go.
Jeez. Oh, that's good to hear. A couple other teams I want to discuss. Fusion had a pretty good week. They were able to beat Uprising, and they were able to beat Mayhem. Nothing too impressive for them, although it is very telling of Uprising losing both of the matches versus Outlaws and Fusion. Last week, we were talking about Uprising in that sense that they were losing a lot this meta game because they've been known to be the dive team. And not only that, their star player, Striker, is known to be a tracer only pretty much player up until this point. Are we seeing them struggle because of the change in meta, or is this something else?
Someone else talk. I feel like I'm talking.
I
Bob, what do you
mean,
think?
I think it is a change in the meta and a change in coaching staff. I think those two things, but biggest the change in the meta. They were being carried somewhat by Striker. Striker was amazing at that, and they were also unbelievable at diving. They would dive extremely fast, and doing the slower thing doesn't really. It just isn't really in their wheelhouse. I think that's my thoughts on it.
I don't know.
What
I
do you
think when
think,
they
Mel?
when they got here, stage one, they didn't look amazing. It took them a little while to get good. And I know I've said this before, but I think they will adapt. I don't know if it'll be quick enough to adapt by the end of stage four, but I think they will adapt. I just think that right now they're struggling to go from dive to this flex kind of meta. I think that we've seen in them that they have really good coaching and that they are able to overcome some of these barriers that have been thrown their way and kind of prove that they can be in the Overwatch League and do well and go undefeated and then prove that they don't need certain players to do that. And you say Striker carried them, but Striker only really got the spotlight this last stage. Before
That's
that,
because people were sleeping and snoozing and not paying attention.
I agree. I think he's always been a really good player, but I don't know that it, one player on that team particularly has carried them at all. I think their team cohesion and their team communication and their ability to work together has been what's helped them get to the next level. And I think they will get there. But right now, their team communication is probably very varied and they don't know what exactly their plan is or what they're going to do. And we saw them struggle at the beginning of stage one when they didn't know that either. So I think they'll get back there.
Yeah, they're in a really weird spot because both of their tanks are really known to be really good dive tanks, right? And they've been known to be played a different style. The style where they just hide really well and then they just jump at the same time without the enemy team being able to really tell where they are. They're relying on their DPS or supports to kind of like guide them through it. And they've had like this style for the longest time, but now that they're having to be put into the front line and they've been getting to fight other teams who have really good Reinhardts, really good Saryas, for example. I think they've been struggling a little bit with that. And now that Striker can't really do what Striker does because he can find some resistance, right? Like people can switch into Brigitte or just in general counter dive with the playstyle. You're seeing, I think, that mistakes is lacking a little bit here. I think that on stage three, at the end of it, we saw mistakes kind of fill in for Dream Casper, and they did well. Mistakes wasn't anything flashy, but I think that now that Striker is doing even less, you can really tell that that spot is lacking a little bit. I don't think that he's really pulling the weight as much as some other DPS in the league. What do you think, Hex?
I think you're pretty spot on. I think it's a DPS issue more than anything else because to keep the thread going, I think their support line is fine, if not completely underrated. Kelix and Neko are really good at their respective positions. The tanks, I don't think you really even have to transition. Like we saw what Philly did. Philly just still runs dive tanks. They still ran dive tanks in most of their matches and won just
Right.
fine. But it's Striker was considered a one trick, but at a certain point in time, and I'm not at my work computer, so I don't have any stats here. He was at the top of the league in Junkrat stats. Like his proficiency on that hero is fine, and just the Junkrat. But I think some of it is maybe mistakes, and he hasn't. I mean, he got thrust into the spotlight, right? They didn't have any other options. They had to put mistakes in. They couldn't sign anybody, and then they asked him to play absolutely everything, like play Widow, play Genji, play Sombra, play this, play that. So I think he's got a ways to go, and it's just like because there's so many good widows in this league that he's going to have a difficult time against it. But if you look back at their finals against New York, going into it, I said like this is going to be all about mistakes. I didn't think they were going to run him on Widow. I thought trying to run mistakes in the Pine would be you're just going to lose. There's no point. But he held his own. He held his own on Widow against some of the best widows in the world on New York. So it's a consistency issue. It's about them figuring out what kind of style they want to play with the DPS that they have. And I think Striker is capable. But of course, when you've been playing nothing but Tracer for like 3 months, and now they're like, okay, you can't play that anymore. It's going to take some time. And they didn't look awful in these games. They're not getting shut out. They look competitive at least some points in these games. So the last thing I'm ever going to do again is underestimate Boston. I think we all should have learned our lesson a little bit ago that it's
Right.
kind of a dumb move to underestimate Boston going forward. And I think it's a new meta, and they were the best dive team in the dive meta, and hopefully they'll figure it out. But I think it is just a DPS issue up front. And the thing is, they don't really have other DPS to come in here and play. It's going to be mistakes, and it's going to be Striker, and they got to figure it out. But I mean, the bright spot, I thought Kalios played amazing.
Yeah, Kelly's
For
having
sure.
a great time. Let's go into the last two teams, Fusion and NYXL. Both teams did pretty good this week. NYXL, of course, very dominant team. Still in this stage, looking very good. We didn't see much adapting from them though. We still
Listen,
saw.
Sabiobi on Brigitte. Come on.
Well, we did see Sabiobi on Brigitte, but aside from that, everybody kind of stayed in the roles that they normally play.
I mean, if you're the best, why you have to change it?
That is true. It made sense, right? Sabiobi being in a main Tracer player and Tracer just being not as attractive in this stage. We were wondering what was gonna happen with Sabiobi. Are they gonna just choose to play Pine a little more, have that McCree Widow out there? Or will he just play the Widowmaker? And I guess in this case, maybe a little bit of Brigitte as well. And he turned out to be quite good at her
And
too.
and a little bit of Widow, I think, too.
Yeah, a little
Yeah,
bit.
he has a good Widow.
They have 3 players in this team who can play a fine Widow. It's unfair.
Do we
Crazy.
think that this is still going to be, can you kill Jonak? Can you reach Jonak and kill him?
Yes.
Well, yeah, especially after you give him a bunch of armor and make him have like 350 health. Like, come on. You're just like,
Super
hey,
Jonek.
yeah, Sabiobi's like, all right, Jonak, I got you too. I'm going to give you, you're going to be unkillable. Like, they couldn't kill him before, and now you give him 100 more armor. Like,
Yeah,
good luck.
I think the pizza was a London special. Whenever New York plays London, they always try something new. Like they want to crush London. They think they're probably the closest competition, so they always have something up their pocket for London, right? And they don't really have to prepare for any other team in the league because they can just show up and be like, oh yeah, we'll beat you. So that was not super surprising. But this is a team. There's so much positive to say, right? So if you just look at their whole roster, every one of these guys plays. Everyone from them plays almost every match. They all get actual play time. They bring in Jonas in. They bring in Animo to come in on support for some maps as well. So everyone gets play time. No one's a weak link. And I still don't know how you beat this team. It's like, okay, we're going to dedicate our time to taking away Pine. All right, good job. Sabiobi just killed 3 of you. We're going to dedicate our time taking away the tank lines. Like, all right, good job. Jonak just killed 3 of you. Like, it's a team that has no weaknesses. And what I love about this team, beyond all the individual talent, which we all know, you could call this team the all-star team, and I have a hard time arguing some of it. Their execution is absolutely flawless and perfect. If you look at the set they had this week, on Hanamura, they give up like 98%, and they don't care. They do not care that they're giving up 98% because they want to be in perfect position for the plan they're about to execute. They jump on the point, and then they kill you. Have fun. That was a fun 98%. See you next time.
Right.
Dorado last. It looks like it's their last push, and there's almost no way anyone's going to touch the cart. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching it, and I'm not even worried, not even getting excited. I'm like, watch this. He's going to come in. He's going to peel back. He's going to come in. He's going to peel back. He's going to come in. They've got this plan in place, and they execute it so perfectly. And they've been doing it since stage 1, week 1.
I was going to say the consistency, I think, is so crucial there too.
Just knowing how much time you have to work with, knowing what to give up, like their ability to touch and stall points is beyond anything I've ever seen. I still think of like that Gibraltar triple blink in from Sabiobi to just touch the cart and recall out of a Deadeye that was had him targeted so that his D.Va can come in after. And then D.Va leaves, but while she's leaving, she peels for the Winston who just came in. Like it's just beautiful to watch. You could slow it down and put classical music over it, and I'd watch hours.
Somebody needs to do that. Somebody from the Overwatch League needs to use that slow motion mode and do exactly that, because that would be awesome.
Yeah, it's just, look, you can't beat a team that's not the only team I think that can beat New York. Well, maybe Philly. We'll see. We'll talk about them next. They're my favorite team right now. But I think your best bet is hoping that New York beats themselves, and they just don't.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about Fusion because Fusion had a great week as well. Fusion has one of the best tanks for this meta, I believe, and his name is Fraggy, one of the most aggressive tanks in the league. This guy will get on your face, swing that hammer, and get Earth Shatter in the first 20 seconds, no problem. He has no fear, and I've never seen a Reinhardt be so aggressive yet survive so much. With the right composition and the team provides it, he can thrive really really well. And the Brigitte is just like a fine addition to this team. I think that they used it really really well. Their Zarya is looking also really amazing, and not to mention their DPS lineup is looking super good. They have so much variety in it. Um, Mel, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I love the Fusion. I think they're really great. I was surprised not to see Fraggy the second game, I guess, because I was excited seeing Fraggy with his hammer and beating up on people. But, I mean, I think Sato did a really good job, and I think they've really got a chance. I think they've shown a lot, and they have only gotten better and better, and their consistency isn't always there. But I think this meta, I think they could pull out some new stops. I think we might see more from them.
This is my favorite team in the league at the moment. Just their style. I don't know, and maybe I'm reading too much into the mentality of it, right? But
Hmm.
Sato's mad. Sato's mad that he got a 30-match suspension, and he's coming in and he is playing angry, and he is playing perfect, and he is playing beautifully. Look, Fraggy and Poco, you would think that this meta would suit them. Sideshow said that he thinks Poco was the best Zarya in the league, and then Poco proceeded to throw away 3 grabs just to prove Sideshow wrong. He didn't have a good performance on King Zero. I think he'd be the one to tell you that as well. Poco is very good diva. His Zarya was lacking, but I'm not really worried about it. The new tank line, the dive tank line that they have looks super impressive. I mean, Sato's Winston, and this small sample size we have, Sato's Winston is a clear upgrade over Fraggy's Winston. It just is. Fraggy is super aggressive, and that's his style, and they play around it, and they make it work sometime, but he dies too often, and Sato doesn't die. Hotba, I thought, played remarkably well. He also had a couple maps where he just didn't die the entire time, just didn't die. And then just the sheer dominance that they're putting on people. That Oasis against Florida says something about Florida, but it says more about Philadelphia, that they go 40-0 and they crush them. They just
That was
crush them.
Not
insane.
even a
It was
kill, right?
disgusting. No,
Not
not a
even a
single
kill.
So it
from
starts on
Mayhem.
city center. They get the Reinhardt set up, and they get a giant slam from behind, and then the Deadeye in, and then they have a grab combo. Like, it was ridiculous. And what I liked about that, so I think that was map 2, then they won map 3, so it's 3-0, and they could coast. They could coast if they want to. We go to Dorado, and they get even filthier with it. They start abusing Florida, and Summer was going nuts because this is what it's like in CS, right? You don't take a game off and give the other team a game, right? You crush them. Get out of my server. You don't belong in the same game as me. They went nuts after him. Yeah.
College ball
Really
right
a
there.
clear message.
They went nuts, and I love that killer instinct. Like, you had EQO jumping 1v3 into people with Junkrat, blowing up 2, and then waving goodbye as he launches himself in the air. Like, there's some guts about this team, and I think a lot of it does probably come from Sato being pissed off about this 30-game suspension. And he comes in, he's playing mad. He's like, I'm taking this team to a championship. And just
It's like,
watch
I'm
it.
back. I'm
Yeah,
back,
and
buddy.
I mean,
And I mentioned too, like, again, this is kind of where all my support talk comes from, but like, Neptuno was ridiculous on Mercy. And some of my favorite stats about him is that of his team's death, he has the lowest percentage as Mercy as any other Mercy in the league. He dies the least. Granted, on all of his team's death, he has the lowest percentage. He has the most resurrections in the league, or he did like a week or two ago when I was doing this research. Has the highest resurrections in the league and the lowest amount of deaths. So he gets everyone back to life, lives through it. Oh, and by the way, he's going to shoot you in the face. On Dorado, he killed 2 people with blasters because they were in the way of his resurrection. They were in the way of him going to get his
Yeah.
res. So he
Out
shot
of my
them
way.
and then brought him back to life. You know how demoralizing that is? Like, you
yes,
just
I
killed
do.
somebody.
Yes,
Here comes
I
a
do.
Mercy. She kills you. She brings you back to life. Boombox is somehow still tragically overrated. I watched this guy in Contender Season 0, which he broke onto the scene. And like, we used to call getting killed a mile away through a doorway getting boomboxed, because he was the first to really start nailing these volleys early on that have become so popular throughout the league. Carpe, Ikuo, don't even need to say much about them. They can play everything. There's no holes in their game at all. EQO's hero pool is monstrous, and he doesn't lose a step on any of them. Carpe's the best fish to ever wield a sniper rifle. And then I think that the tank line, they have options, but they didn't really bring in Fraggy or Poco after they saw what Hapa and Sato were doing. And I think it would be, they were running dive tanks with whatever DPS they wanted. And, perhaps they just outclassed Florida. They probably did. They're a better team. We all know that. But the way they did it, and that they never let up, and they just went after them, and they made a statement on it. They just crushed them. I loved it, and I think this team is playing angry, and I think they have their eyes on the big prize. And look, this is a team that was able to go toe-to-toe with New York in big situations, big scenarios. So this is definitely a team that should make the playoffs, and then everyone should be afraid of playing.
For sure. Do you think Sato's does he have much experience on Rhine?
I don't know a ton about Sato, to be honest, so I couldn't tell you. I know that he was probably brought in to be the Winston player, given that Fraggy is like thought of as the Ryan. But I'd have to go back into the Rod review because I was just so hyped during the game. But I think he played Ryan a couple of the maps. I think he played at City Center. He's the one who got that giant shatter early on. Mm-hmm. I don't recall so I casted the game this week, and I don't recall casting either Fraggy or Poco. So I think they just left Sato and Hoppa in the entire set that I casted with them, which was against Florida. So. And it's not a bad thing that the guys on the bench are Fraggy and Poco. That's a pretty nice situation to be in.
Could do worse.
And Shadowburn or Shadowbench, like some people have started calling him.
IDDQ not play.
Yeah, I think from some of the conversations I had, I think they feel the roster in to play the style that they want and not the other way around, right? So EQ is more aggressive with his blades. He's more aggressive Genji. That's why he got the play time. That's why he got the start. And when he's playing like this, can you ever take him out? He's also got a deeper pool than Shadow. Maybe
he could
maybe Shadowburn's Pharah is better, but EQO's looked fine on Pharah when they needed it. So I also think the communication with probably Carpe and Sato and Hapa might just be a little bit better considering language issues. That Carpe can actually talk to his main tanks much easier now and more in depth than trying to call. So I think everything is going perfect for this team right now, and it's set up really well for them. And I love the killer instinct of just, we are better than you. We are not going to even allow you to get anything here. And we're going to embarrass you. We're going to embarrass you because we're better.
We're not going to take it.
Kind of.
They're going for that win. All right, guys, that'll do it for today's episode. Thank you so much, Hex, for coming in and having this discussion with us. It's always super fun having casters from the league. You guys are super knowledgeable, and it makes the discussion a lot more in depth than normal. To close off the show, just to let everybody know, you can join us and compete with us on High Noon Pick'em League. You can go to High Noon Pick'ems. You can go to the feature part. You can scroll down and find the Owl Recap League. And you can compete with us to see who can do the better this stage. We already started a little rocky, but
yeah, you guys are sucking, man. Oh my gosh.
Okay, well, if I remember to put my picks for second.
Yeah, if I would have remembered to put that first game pick in that I forgot, I'd be winning right now by 50 points. But you guys are like on the other page.
Yeah. Hey, we forgot like 2 whole days. Okay, so cut us some slack.
Also, if you want to follow the show on Twitter, you can follow it at Owl Recap. You can also find us on Twitch or new Twitch. We've actually made an Owl Recap Twitch. We're now no longer streaming on Omnic Lab. So if you want to follow us, come meet us at twitch.tv/Owl Recap. Again, same time, 9 p.m. Eastern. Today we start a little later, but normally your time is 9 p.m. Eastern every Monday. You can also join us on Discord at discord.me/OmnicLab. We're all over there hanging out, playing games, having game nights. So if you guys want to be part of the community, that is the best place to do so.
Is this weekend as well.
Yeah, game night is this weekend, actually. Friday, the 25th. If you guys would like to join it, join the Discord. You'll know where to find it.
I think Hex needs to come.
Yeah, you should come, Hex, and play with us a little bit.
Yep, just come to game night, Friday night.
No pressure.
I know. After you get off, though, it goes till about 5 in the morning.
Dude, I have a brutal schedule. So I do 1 and 3 on Friday, then 1 and 3 on Saturday, and Saturday starts at 1 p.m. So I get home Friday night like 11:30 or 12, and of course I'm amped up because I've been drinking caffeine all day and watching Overwatch. Then my call time is like 10:30 the next morning. So Friday nights are hours.
Bummer. Could have you come and cast one of the games. It would be epic.
Oh my god, that would be incredible. Okay, but we can also email the show at contact@owlrecap.com if you guys have any business inquiries or just want to reach out to the show, leave us any feedback. You can also leave us an iTunes review. That helps a lot with the visibility of the show and keep us up there so other people can find us. And it also warms our hearts when we read them. So do that if you have the time. You can also find us individually on Twitter. I'm going to pass it to Hex to give you guys where you can find him and also any shout outs you'd like to give, Hex.
No, thanks for having me. Shout outs to you guys. And on Twitter, I am at hexagrams. I don't tweet very often. I'm trying to get better at it, but I don't find my life interesting enough to
We're in
tweet
the
about.
same,
But I'm
we're in the
trying.
same boat, buddy.
Just
What about you,
tweet,
Bob?
just tweet pictures like we took with you, me, and the photo of Blevins when we were out at stage 3 finals. That
Yeah.
stuff's great. But you can
Or
find
Uberisms. Those are always
Uberisms.
good.
Yeah, just record a like live Uberism. So you can find me on Twitter at Blazzin_Bob. That's BLAZZIN_BOB. Where can we find you, Mel?
You can find me on Twitter at Overwatch.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We'll see you guys next week.
Later,
Bye.
guys.
Bye.
Oh, I have to end the stream. Bye, guys.